I fed Claude every Andrej Karpathy interview from the last 4 years and asked it one question. What does this guy keep coming back to? 7 ideas emerged. And all of that goes back to one line he said in October 2025.
In my mind, this is really a lot more accurately described as the decade of agents.
Yeah.
So everybody heard the timeline, almost nobody heard what he kept saying around it. But once you do, you can't go back to using AI the same way. Let's start with the strangest one. So the first thing that he keeps coming back to totally reframed AI for me. You know how ChatGPT or Claude just totally make stuff up sometimes? How they confidently state something that's totally wrong? Well, that's called hallucinating.
What is a base model? It's a token simulator, right? It's an internet text token simulator. And so that is not by itself useful yet, because what we want is what's called an assistant. We want to ask questions and have it respond to answers. These models won't do that. They just create sort of remixes of the internet. They dream internet pages.
Karpathy says we got that backwards. He says it again 2 years later at Microsoft Build.
So, and also in particular, basically these transformers are just like token simulators. So they don't know what they don't know. Like they just imitate the next token. They don't know what they're good at or not good at. They just try their best to imitate the next token.
Honestly, this happens way more than I'd like to admit. I use AI a lot for research, for making these YouTube videos, for doing product management work, and just a whole other range of tasks. And the pattern I keep running into is if I ask it to cite sources, the AI will confidently tell me that according to this paper or this source shows and link to a real paper, a working link. But then I open the source, the paper exists, but the claim the AI attributed to it isn't there. So the AI basically dreamed an attribution. And what I had to learn the hard way is that half of the problem is yes, it's the model, but the other half is a skill issue. And I don't mean the skill of using AI. I mean the skill of actually checking the sources that AI gives you. So don't just ask for citations, like actually open them. Because AI said so is not a check. Like sometimes it hallucinates. It's a dream with a footnote. And what hit me when this finally clicked for me is that the model isn't lying to you when it hallucinates. It's not trying to fool you. It's doing the exact same thing it does when it gets the answer right. It's dreaming. All the time, even when the dreams happen to be true. So right or wrong, it's a dream. And the fix for this isn't to tell ChatGPT or Claude to be more careful and accurate, because the model has no idea of what's real and what's a dream. So the fix really is on you. If something matters, then make sure to check it. So you have to stop asking the models what's true, because you shouldn't talk to a dream machine and expect a database. It's a dream. Can be right, can be wrong. And once you accept that the model is dreaming, then the next question is, what is it dreaming out of? What it's dreaming out of is probably the single best metaphor in this entire corpus. Karpathy uses it in 4 different interviews.
So you can think of these 405 billion parameters as a kind of compression of the internet. It's kind of like a zip file, but it's not a lossless compression, it's a lossy compression. We're kind of like left with kind of a gestalt of the internet.
So Karpathy calls an LLM a lossy zip file of the internet. So you can imagine this, right? Every book, every Wikipedia article, every blog post, you compress it all into a few 100 billion numbers. Think of it like a JPEG of the entire internet. You can see the shape of any topic, but when you zoom in, of course, the details are gonna get blurry eventually. Some pixels get like guessed at because they didn't make it through the compression, and when you ask the model a question, it's not looking anything up. It's reading from that blurry JPEG, especially when it comes to the details. But that's the reason why it's confident. The shape looks real and correct to it. And that's why it's wrong sometimes, because the shape is not the specific thing. Because again, as we mentioned, it's dreaming. LLMs are not a database. They never were. So stop asking it to remember specifics for you. If you do need a specific fact, then point it to a source. Paste the article, upload the PDF, drop the URL. That way, you're not testing its memory. You're actually handing it something to compress on the spot. Because the live version of a document beats a compressed summary every single time. Okay, so now we know that the model is dreaming out of a lossy copy of everything, which explains why it's weirdly brilliant at some things and just incredibly stupid at others. So Karpathy actually has a name for that too. He calls it jagged intelligence.
They display jagged intelligence. So they're going to be superhuman in some problem-solving domains, and then they're going to make mistakes that basically no human will make. Like, they will insist that 9.11 is greater than 9.9, or that there are two R's in strawberry.
And in his March 2026 podcast, he sharpens it even further.
I simultaneously feel like I'm talking to an extremely brilliant PhD student who's been like a systems programmer for their entire life and a 10-year-old.
So what he's basically saying is that the model isn't good at stuff or bad at stuff. It's both at the same time in the same session. It can solve a research level math problem and then fail to count letters in a word, like how many R's in strawberry. It can refactor thousands of lines of code and then insist that 9.11 is bigger than 9.9. And that's simply because it's broken. Not because you're prompting it wrong, but because the compression was uneven. Some parts of the internet got squeezed harder than others. So before I trust an answer on anything that actually matters, anything where being wrong has the cost, I just check it. Really check it. You know what I'm saying? Because I know that the map or the knowledge of the model is jagged. So jagged intelligence, right? And before I dismiss an answer that I think it'll be bad at, I try it first. Because again, the jagged part cuts both ways. It's dumber than you think about some things, and it's smarter than you think about others. And you won't know which is which until you try. Now, here's what Karpathy thinks we should be doing about AI. And this is where the video stops being about LLMs and starts being about you. In June 2025, Karpathy gives a talk at YC's AI startup school that gets called Software 3.0. He argues that there have been three eras of how humans program computers.
The idea here was that Software 1.0 is the code you write for the computer. Software 2.0 are basically neural networks, and in particular, the weights of a neural network. And you're not writing this code directly. You're more kind of like tuning the data sets, and then you're running an optimizer to create the parameters of this neural net.
So don't skip this. This matters even if you've never written a line of code. So Software 1.0 is that you or someone else types instructions in Python or JavaScript, and that's what code has been for 70 years. Software 2.0, on the other hand, is instead of writing instructions, you train a neural network on examples. You don't write rules, but instead you show it patterns. Nobody wrote code that says if it has whiskers and pointy ears, label it a cat. What they instead did is they fed a neural network 10 million labeled photos and figured out what a cat looks like. That's how your phone unlocks with your face. That's how Siri understands what you're saying. And that's how your social media feed decides what to show you next. Software 2.0 is already running half of the things on your phone right now. And then there's a new one. And Karpathy gives it a name.
So in my mind, it's worth giving it a new designation of Software 3.0. And basically, your prompts are now programs that program the LLM. And remarkably, these prompts are written in English.
Software 3.0. You open ChatGPT and you type in English. No code, no training, just words. He's so serious about this line that he pinned a different version of it to the top of his Twitter profile.
I tweeted this, and I think it captured the attention of a lot of people, and this is my currently pinned tweet, is that remarkably, we're now programming computers in English.
He says there's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding, where you fully give into the vibes and forget that the code even exists. I just talk to Composer with Super Whisper, so I barely even touch the keyboard. I ask for the dumbest things like decrease the padding on the sidebar by half, and I accept all. Always. I don't even read the diffs anymore. Andrej Karpathy, Stanford PhD, ex-Tesla AI director and ex-OpenAI founding member, doesn't read the code. He just vibes. So, if you've ever asked ChatGPT to write an email you didn't know how to start, or to summarize a PDF that was too long, help you fix a spreadsheet, then congratulations. You've already programmed a computer in English because you had an LLM do something that you didn't really know how to do, but you just described what needed to get done. So that's already software 3.0. You didn't need a computer science degree. You just described what you wanted and the machine went and did it. This is important because the skill being asked from you now isn't technical. It's communicative. It's communication. So the people who get the most out of the AI era aren't necessarily the best coders. They're the best describers. So you have to get good at saying what you want and saying it precisely. Just say it how you would say it to like a smart friend that you know would understand your request. That's basically the whole skill. So real quick, remember what this video is actually about. LLMs are a new kind of object, not a better Google, not a smarter Siri, it's something else. And everything we're talking about here is just 7 different ways of saying that. But Karpathy has an honest warning about all of this. Demo versus product. So vibe coding works great until you try shipping something real. Karpathy has been building this tool called MenuGen. So he says he vibe coded the whole first version and it worked beautifully in a day. A year later on the No Priors podcast, he said this about it.
The whole thing still doesn't, it's still kind of like bursting at the seams a little bit, and there's cracks and it doesn't fully work.
That's the whole lesson in one sentence. It goes by 2 names in the corpus. On No Priors, he calls it demo is near, product is far.
So in this sense, I would say the demo is near, but the product is far.
And on the Dwarkesh episode, he calls it the March of Nines.
And then I think basically what takes the long amount of time, and the way to think about it is that it's a march of nines, and every single 9 is a constant amount of work.
I mean, think about that for a second. 90% reliability to 99% reliability is not 10% more work. It's basically the same amount of work as going from 0 to 90. And 99 to 99.9 takes that same amount all over again. That's how any real product works in any industry that cares about reliability. And it's exactly how AI products work as well. So when I see a demo on Twitter of some new AI thing doing something amazing, I just now assume it's 80% there. And the last 20% is going to take a long time. Not because the builders are lazy, because the March of Nines is a law. It's not a bug. This keeps me calm about timelines, and it keeps me from either over-trusting the hype or over-dismissing the progress. The demo is real. The product is hard. Both things can actually be true. Which brings us to the one thing Karpathy keeps coming back to more than anything else. It's in 7 out of his 10 interviews that Claude watched. And it's the single most practical piece of advice in this entire video. Lesson 6. Use tools. That's it. That's the advice. He says it in a deep dive lecture.
OpenAI has trained ChatGPT to recognize problems that it cannot do in its head and to rely on tools instead. So what I expect ChatGPT to do for this kind of a query is to turn to tool use.
He says it in his video about how he uses LLMs.
That's not the kind of thing that I can do in my head. And so therefore, I'm going to rely on a calculator. So I'm going to use a calculator, punch it in, and see that the output is roughly 53.
He talks about it in Microsoft Build, and he says it on the Lex Friedman podcast as well. He says it again and again and again on multiple interviews.
Whenever you can, lean on tools and tool use instead of allowing the models to do all of this stuff in their memory. So if they try to do it all in their memory, don't fully trust it and prefer to use tools whenever possible.
And honestly, this one isn't just his advice. It's also the biggest single driver of my own success with AI. It's not clever prompting. It's not picking the best or the right model. Or it's not like writing magic spells so that the AI does what I want. My secret sauce has always been about giving my AI assistants the right tools and clear instructions on how to use them. Most times that an AI task fails, the fix has usually been to give it a better tool. Every time I had one do amazing, the difference has always been the tools that it had access to. So when Karpathy keeps coming back to this, I'm not just telling you because he said it, I'm telling you because this is also my personal experience. And I think here's why he keeps on saying it. Remember everything that we've just covered? That the model is dreaming, the model is a lossy zip file, it has jagged intelligence. Now, all of that goes away the moment you give the model a calculator. The calculator doesn't dream. The calculator doesn't compress, and it's not jagged. So if you ask the model to multiply two big numbers, it might confidently dream up a wrong answer. But if you ask the model to use a calculator to multiply those two big numbers, it will give you the right answer. So you have to understand, the model's job isn't to know things. The model's job is to know which tool to use and how to use it. And the best part is you can always guide it in the right direction. So if there's just one thing that you take from this entire video, it's this one. Never use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini with the tools turned off. There's so many different tools now, like code interpreter, web browsing, file upload, memory. If your model has a tool, use it. If your model lets you add tools, add them. Stop asking the models to calculate, but instead start asking it to use the calculator. Everything else in this video is context. This is the actionable step that you can do right now to make your output so much better. But there's one more thing Karpathy keeps saying, and I think it's the most important frame shift of all, because it explains everything that we just went through. And it does it in 3 words. Ghosts, alien artifacts, or spirit entities. Karpathy has been looking for the right metaphor for 3 years. You can watch him get closer and closer across 3 different interviews. Here's him on the Lex Fridman podcast in October 2022.
They are arrived at by a very different optimization process than the optimization process that gave rise to the brain. And so I think, I kind of think of it as a very complicated alien artifact.
Okay, alien artifact, close. But watch what happens as he keeps trying to explain it. Fast forward almost 3 years to June 2025.
So the way I like to think about LLMs is that they're kind of like people spirits. They are stochastic simulations of people.
So warmer, more specific, still finding that correct metaphor. And then 4 months later on the Dwarkesh podcast, he finally finds the words that he's been hunting for.
So in my post, I kind of said, we're not actually building animals. We're building ghosts. And so you end up with these like sort of ethereal spirit entities because they're fully digital and they're kind of like mimicking humans. And it's a different kind of intelligence.
Let that land. We're not building animals, we're building ghosts. A ghost is not a human. A ghost is not a machine. It's what the internet left behind when you compress it into numbers. Something with enough shape to actually talk back to you. And this is why prompting works the way it does. You're not commanding a machine. You're talking to something, a ghost, that's simulating a person. So the same thing that works on a person also works for LLMs. So what works for a person? You give it context, you tell it who it's talking to, you show it examples of what you want. So instead of typing, write me a cover letter, you instead try and say, I'm a product designer with 5 years of experience. I'm applying for a senior role at a fintech startup. Here's the job description below. Write a cover letter that sounds like me. Conversational, a little dry, no corporate buzzwords. So notice that that second prompt wasn't a command. It's like you talking to a ghost that needs enough context about you so that it can help you. So for now, I told you that the most practical advice from this video is tool use. Now, if you want to learn how I actually build my AI agents using nothing but plain English and how I give them access to tools, then check out this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.